There once was a poor couple who had no children. This made the woman sad, and her husband couldn't comfort her. One day, after gathering firewood, the husband found a snake in the bush he gathered, and he showed his wife. She sighed.
"Here is an orphaned child. If only he could be my son."
The snake replied.
"Well, why not? I'll be your son if you would be my mother."
The couple gasped in surprise, as this was not a land in which animals had the power of speech. "Seeing as you are no usual snake, I don't see why we cannot do this for each other," the woman replied. And so from then on, the couple treated the snake as their son, and he returned the love. The new mother supplied her son with everything one might wish for, and anyone could see her newfound joy. As the days passed, the small snake grew and grew and grew, equaling the size of his parents, surpassing them as a son should do. One day, the snake approached his father and said,
"Papa, I'm now old enough to marry and desire to do so."
"I am all for it. I'll find a beautiful snake like yourself and arrange it all."
His father replied.
"You misunderstand. That won't help us at all. I'd like to marry the king's daughter. I cannot ask, however, so you must go for me and tell him I wish to have his daughter in marriage."
His father didn't see anything wrong with this, so he went as his son requested, and once he was before the king, he asked,
"Your Majesty, I hear you can lose nothing from asking, so I have come on behalf of a snake who wishes to marry your daughter. Pray tell, would you be willing to mate a dove with a serpent?"
The king saw he was a fool and thought of a way to get rid of him.
"If your snake can turn the palace into ivory, inlaid with gold and silver, before tomorrow at noon, I will let him marry my daughter."
The king laughed, thinking that would be the last of the man. After going home and telling his son the king's answer, the snake instructed his father.
"Before sunrise tomorrow, go to the woods and gather green herbs. Rub the threshold of the palace with them, and you will see them."
The father did just that. And as soon as he did, the walls turned to ivory, so richly inlaid with gold and silver. They dazzled the eyes of all beholders. The king saw what had been done and was amazed, yet immediately began thinking of another test to keep his daughter from a snake. That afternoon, the man was back in the king's court, demanding the princess's hand in return. The king had prepared for this, however, and gave him a second task.
"Before I give your snake my daughter in marriage, he must turn all the paths and walls of my garden into pure gold by tomorrow at noon."
Again, the man went back and told his son what the king requested.
"Tomorrow morning, before anyone is out, go collect all the trash you find in the street and throw it on the path and walks. We will match this king yet."
The snake replied. So again, the father did as was requested. And no sooner had he thrown the rubbish on the path than they turned to gold, through and through. When the king saw this, he still couldn't bring himself to give his daughter to the snake. So when the man came a third time to the king's court, the king gave him one last task.
"I have still a third demand to make. If the snake can turn all the trees and fruit of my garden into precious stones, then I promise him my daughter in marriage."
So one more time, the man told his son of the task. His son replied,
"Tomorrow morning, go to the market and buy all the fruit you see. Sow all the stone and seed in the palace garden, and you will sell this still."
After doing what his son requested, the trees were covered in rubies, emeralds, and diamonds. When the king saw this, he could not deny the snake further. Going to his daughter, he told her of his deal.
"I demanded 3 impossible tasks of a suitor for you, to have a good laugh. However, now that he's done all I required, I am forced to grant him your hand in marriage. Please, try to take this fate bravely for me."
His daughter responded, "Your will is my law, father. I will do as you request." The king told the snake's father to bring the snake to the palace so he could receive him as his son-in-law. The snake arrived in a carriage of gold, pulled by 6 white elephants. Though he was not an ugly snake, his appearance in court made many a lady faint and lord quiver at the size of the reptile. The queen and king hid, but the princess stood her ground with a mind clear of fear. The snake approached the princess, wound around her, and kissed her. They retreated to a room and closed the door. The king and queen approached, fearing it was too late to save their daughter. Behind closed doors, the snake threw off his skin, revealing a handsome young man. He embraced the princess tenderly. Outside, the queen and king looking in through the keyhole and saw the young man, excitedly. They burst through the door, grabbing the snakeskin, they threw it into the fire. As they did this, the young man was horrified and exclaimed,
What have you done, foolish people? Your distrust has cost you your daughter's happiness.
Before anything else could be done, the man turned into a dove and flew, hitting and breaking a window, out into the forest. The princess, her happiness destroyed, cried, and her parents could not comfort her. Every action has a consequence. Every snakeskin has a meaning. Fear brings out the worst in people. Don't judge a snake by its skin. Magic one can't understand is a magic one shouldn't mess with. Trust others based on actions, not appearances.